mastering engineer, so I cut vinyl records, the masters, which is the first stage in the process of making a vinyl record. I am currently, my lathe is housed in Sam Phillips Recording Service in Memphis, Tennessee. I'm Jeff Powell, and I'm a music maker. I started learning to cut vinyl in 2008, so I guess it doesn't seem possible that I was doing that 6 years before Memphis record pressing really got its legs and started doing it. But it was slow going. I didn't go, okay, I'm a vinyl mastering engineer now. It was more for the sense of I was learning how to cut vinyl records, and I was doing it on the original Stax lathe, and Larry Nix was my mentor, teaching me along the way what to do. Plus I would talk to anybody about anything that had any knowledge about it. So there's not really a book you can read and say, okay, here's how. I mean, I always tell people I could show you which buttons to push on my machine pretty fast. In a half a day, you could probably cut a record on my machine. But I'm still learning, and you know, I've been doing it, so I guess, what is that, 16 years now? I've been doing this, and it's always a learning curve, and learning from people who've done it for years, learning from colleagues that do it now. We all share things, everything from, oh my God, there's a bad set of lacquers going around, these are noisy, watch out for these, to be careful if you do a job for that company because they don't pay their bills, you know. One day we were eating lunch and we were out in the common area at Ardent, and we were eating whatever fast food we'd chosen for that day probably, and he got a record in the mail, and at the front desk they brought it to him. So while we're eating, he's ripping open the cardboard and he pulls it out, and there's the cover, and he's looking at the front and the back, then he cuts the cellophane off and pulls the record out and looks at it, and I guess it was a used record that he bought from somebody online, so he's checking the quality, you know, the condition of it. And it looked like a brand new record, and it had a smell to it. And he was so excited, he goes, man, I can't wait to get home and play this tonight. And it just set me like, I remembered that feeling of when I bought a new record or got something that was new to me, even if it was borrowed from a friend or whatever, that holding that tactile thing. And I went home that night and just blew off the dust and got my system put back together with my turntable, and I still had tons of albums. I just picked something off the shelf and put it on, and I swear I put my head in my hands. I'm like, what have I been doing for the last 20 years? Oh my God. It wasn't more, I never say it's better, because you can argue technically that it's not better, but there's a dimension, there's a depth, and there's a feeling that you get as a human being listening to music, like you get when you go see a live band. That's another different feeling. But playing a vinyl record and the whole experience of it immediately clicked with me. And then I just started thinking like, man, there's the Stax lathe that's sitting in Larry's room, just sitting there. Maybe we could get them, I could talk him into getting that going again and maybe teaching me. This is so cool. I can't even imagine how much fun it would be to cut a record. And you know, it probably took 2 years after that before I actually did. But first time I ever dropped the cutter head and on a test cut myself with Larry watching me, I cut a song and then played it right back off the lathe. My knees literally went weak and I had to sit down on the couch. So it's a very powerful feeling. So it got me. Once I started, you know, it was a slow start. I did one here or there. I really got into the whole vinyl cutting thing as a way to just have another tool in my tool belt, really. I thought it would be cool if I could record and mix and produce a band, and like, I can also cut your vinyl record and mix toward that goal, so you'll have a great sounding vinyl record. And once I left Ardent in 2000, John Fry, who was the owner of Ardent, passed away fairly suddenly in November of 2014. as well as John Hampton, who was kind of my recording mentor and friend. So Ardent was kind of in an upheaval mode there for a while. As things got sorted out, it was about June or July of 2015. And I'd been looking for a lathe for a long time, and I finally found one and needed a home for it. So the Phillips family immediately, I had been doing some test sessions over here, trying out the room. They were kind of revitalizing the studio. A good friend of mine, Matt Rossbang, had started doing sessions over here and convinced me, he's like, you've got to come over here. Because I'd never been in this building past the lobby till then. And so I was actually doing some test sessions over here, and they said, you know, if you want to come over here and bring your new lathe, your old new lathe, we could remodel Studio B control room. And, you know, I paid for the remodeling of it, and so I've been here ever since. So it's really crazy to think about. This is my 10th year here at Sam Phillips Recording Service. My background is coming from learning to be an assistant engineer, to being a recording engineer, to being a mix engineer. And all those things play into the way I can tell people what I need to make a better vinyl record, because, you know, like number one, there's this thing called a mono button. Check your mixes in mono. In the 90s, when we were not even considering vinyl, you know, I loved hard panning and things like that you could do back then without any care or regard to how it would end up on a vinyl record. And now, you know, I've been the victim of my own mixes a couple of times, going back to some of the Afghan Wigs records that I recorded and engineered and mixed back in the day. You know, I was more worried about it'd be really cool if that came out over here and that popped in over here. But it didn't make it, years down the road when they're having me do the cutting for the box set, it didn't make it any easier on myself. So. I am eternally thankful and grateful that I get to get up in the mornings and do a job that I absolutely love doing it. Even on days when there's frustration or something goes wrong or something mechanically fails that's gonna put you behind, you've got to make all these phone calls and promise people when you could do it. There's ways out of all these things. Some days it's really stressful, but I feel very happy that I get to be a happy person in the world doing something that I love so much, and God, sometimes people even pay you for it.